pledge will be led by the gentlewoman from Texas, Miss Johnson.
I'm here this morning just to address education. How do we know? Because the people have told us so. We represent the real. The ideal way to alleviate the shortages is by ensuring that children of all races and both genders receive the basic grounding in science and mathematics that will prepare them to pursue careers as scientists, engineers, and technologists. Is it not time, then, for America to grow morally? For those who fear to answer this question, I will answer it for them. The time is now.
Now more than ever, what happens in Washington impacts us here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Your Congresswoman, Eddie Bernice Johnson, will help you understand what goes on inside the federal government and share perspectives from today's leading policymakers and opinion leaders. And now, your Congresswoman, Eddie Bernice Johnson.
Hello, and welcome to the Capitol Report this week. My guest today is Janet Bandows Koster, the Executive Director of the Association for Women in Science. The Association for Women in Science works to break down barriers to create opportunities for women working in the STEM programs, that is science, technology, engineering, and math. And it has really 5,000 members and chapters around the country, including 3 in Texas. As Executive Director, Ms. Koster is responsible for the day-to-day operation of ABIS. She is a graduate of Occidental College in Los Angeles and holds a master's degree in international relations from Troy State University and an MBA from DeVry University. I have been interested for the last 35, 40 years in trying to encourage women to get into the STEM programs. And so I welcome her because I want to talk a little bit more about someone else's perspective, or perhaps reinforcing mine. This is an important issue for today. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You know, I know that it's really important that we continue to encourage women to enter into the STEM areas, that is the science, technology, engineering, and math. Not so much because we just want women in, but we need the brain power. How do you, as an organization, as executive director of an organization, encourage this?
Well, we work at different levels. At the national level, we work very much with federal agencies and professional societies to take a look at the issues that face women in the career track. At the local level, for example, you mentioned that we had 3 chapters in Texas. Mm-hmm. They do a lot of work in after-school programs with girls to encourage them to stay in the science and math disciplines and to continue on. They do mentoring, networking, and provide support. But as I said, at the national level, our focus really is on structural issues, and I think that's a dialogue that we really need to have and to begin talking about a bit more.
Tell me a bit about the structural problems.
Well, women face, in the science fields, because of the way that the nature of science is structured, they face severe career issues when they get to the point where they also need to make life decisions, having children, getting married. And those are typically, in the science fields, the years where you're publishing, patenting, looking at getting on the tenure track. And so there are a number of institutional barriers that, or maybe not barriers, but certainly challenges that direct women to leave the science and engineering fields. And that is a big problem, I think, for us. I think we need to address that. When you look at the number of women who are getting degrees, we're almost at parity in the life sciences, in both undergraduate and graduate degrees. So it's not a matter of being able to do the science or the math.
Well, several years ago, I worked with a former colleague of mine, Connie Morella, to do a study nationwide. And what we found is that women feel that in many of those fields they face hostility because they do have to take maternity leave, and their lifestyle has to be a little different in those childbearing years than a male. Do you find that still to be an issue?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the key issues. And what you see at many universities and in academia nowadays is the institutions implementing family-friendly policies. But that's not across the board. So it's not something that's standard. And even if an institution has family-friendly policies, what we often find is that women are afraid to take advantage of that because they feel that they will be discriminated against if they do.
Discriminated in what way? They're off the track for moving up? Or
off the track for moving up, not making tenure, not getting into the good projects, not being published, not having that recognition that's so important in the science community. One of the areas that we are focusing on right now, particularly here in Washington, D.C., is working with the professional societies. It's a Society for the American Chemical Society, the professional societies that so many women in those disciplines belong to, and getting those societies to take a look at their ward structures and those societies to take a step up to help encourage institutions and agencies promote women or continue to support women in advancement. And awards are very important in the field of science, in the science disciplines, to promotion, and they're a recognition by your colleagues. And so we're trying to work in that arena as one of the ways to lower barriers that women face, particularly, I think, in academic institutions.
I have legislation to attempt to encourage institutions to be aware and more sensitive to women careers in these areas. And I've had a number of questions posed to me about whether or not the universities might be resistant to keeping records or resistant to giving any time at all to overtly encourage women in these fields. Are you finding that to be realistic?
I think change is always difficult, and cultural change is particularly difficult, and that's what I meant when I started talking about structural changes, and really taking a look at the way that science is done in this country, and making accommodation for all people who come into the science fields, and taking a look at really how we can change the nature of how business is done. Financial arena has done it, the legal field has done it. They've provided training and workshops and information to get women who have gone off, who have off-ramped, so-called off-ramp, to get them back into the workplace. And those are the issues that I think that we really need to talk about in the STEM fields. So academic institutions, again, change is always difficult, but there are a number of excellent programs that have been instituted, particularly through the National Science Foundation, the ADVANCE program, that they've seen quite some success. I was just reading the other day a program that at the University of Michigan called Weasley, and that program, they implemented a number of workshops to talk about different interventions that could be done. And one of the workshops done with the chairs was to talk about some of the hiring practices, some of the day-to-day work environment, workplace issues. And what they found was within a 3-year period, the number of women chairs in the life sciences and physics disciplines went from 5 to 20%. Now, 20% we could argue is still not great, but it's certainly a lot better than 5%. So I do think that there is room for workshops and bringing people together to talk about the issues.
Do you think it's sort of a by practice discrimination, or is there a real sense of women don't belong attitude?
I don't know. Again, I don't know that it's overt discrimination. Certainly, I would say it's not overt discrimination, and very